Here are the actors that were considered for Superman prior to Christopher Reeve. Robert Redford.
Please say John Ritter.
John Ritter would have been great. Burt Reynolds.
Imagine trying to CGI that mustache off.
Sylvester Stallone actually even got as far as meeting with Donner. Paul Newman. Yeah.
Okay.
Donner felt that Christopher Reeve was too young and skinny. Over 200 unknown actors auditioned for the role. Bruce Jenner auditioned for the role.
Oh, interesting.
Patrick Wayne, John Wayne's kid.
John Wayne Gacy?
No, not John Wayne Gacy. John Wayne's kid. Patrick Wayne.
Oh, John Wayne. Hey, I'm Joe.
I'm Ken.
I'm Andrew.
And I'm Dan.
And we're the Rewinders, rewinding movies to see if they hold up. And this time, I breathe while inhaling. Wait,
that's the same thing, Joe.
Did you come into contact with some
while
kryptonite?
Breathing.
Or inhaling that San
Yeah, I
Andreas
found
fault
my
dust?
own kryptonite.
Are you being buried alive in a car?
While watching Superman, the movie.
Yeah.
So
we did that.
None of us were alive when this movie was released.
This is the first time I've ever seen this film.
Likewise.
Really?
I've never seen actually any Superman films. This is the first one.
So even the newer ones you've never seen.
I saw Man of Steel. I did not see Superman Returns.
See, my problem was I was too stubborn, and I grew up with Batman. Batman was the first thing I was introduced to. Batman was like the shit as a kid. I had a Batmobile, Power Wheels I drove around and everything. So when it came down to it, it's just like, why would I care about this? This is a guy who has no superpowers, and he's just smart and has martial arts experience, and he's just really cool, versus a guy who has everything and can't die.
It's the money.
So I never liked Superman.
It was the money, Andy. It was
the money all along. It was the money all along. Yeah, so I don't know. Through my narrow scope growing up, I never cared about Superman because it just seemed like that's a dumb hero if they have almost no weaknesses and they're just cool to be cool. So I never gave it a chance.
Yeah, they keep on making them. And the worst part is people who love Superman hate Ms. Marvel or whatever the fuck her name was in the new movies. Brie Larson.
Brie Larson, yeah.
Captain Marvel.
But there was also a lot of misogynistic men who hated Brie Larson.
Ms. Marvel is the cool one.
Yeah.
Well, because I get confused because there's also a Marvel character. Is it Mr. Marvel in DC?
Yes.
And then there's Miss Marvel.
I think his name is just
Marvel.
Marvel.
Is it the Marvel? Oh God.
No, Miss Marvel is.
Miss Marvel's. She's Marvel.
She's the Indian girl.
Yeah.
See, it gets annoying trying to understand this. Now, I'm not a comic book guy. I did get into comic books for a while and I dabbled for a little bit. But do we really need a Batman, a Batwoman, a Batgirl, a Superman, a Supergirl, Superdog? Like, there's always just an extension to try to fit every single tiny little checkbox that there possibly can be.
Well, it's the old Barbie thing. You got to have a costume for everybody, so that way everyone can feel represented and feel like that's my superhero.
It just makes me think of
Scrooge. My dog
Scrooge.
loves Superdog.
Yeah, it makes me think of Scrooge.
That's not true.
The scene in Scrooge where the network head is talking to Bill Murray and is talking about how cats and dogs are starting to watch television. So they want to start putting things into individual episodes, like dangle a mouse on a string or something like that. just little flashes here and there. Because then in 20, 30 years, they might make up X amount of viewership.
It's too bad we do new movies for holidays, because I wouldn't mind watching Scrooged. It's been ages.
God. I bought Scrooged on sale like last year, and I've ended up watching it probably about a half a dozen times since I bought it last year. It is a phenomenal movie. I love that movie so much.
So I thought I had actually watched this movie. Turns out I haven't watched this one. I think now that I've only watched the one with what's his name. It might be Superman 3.
Oh,
I know Superman 3. Richard Pryor.
Yeah.
Yep.
The movie that everybody can't stand because it's apparently so damn bad. But then again, 2 gets a bad rap too.
Okay, so I watched that because of Office Space, and it is a very, very loose connection to what happened in Office Space and what happened in Superman 3.
Yeah,
sure. And then I did watch just a very small part of Batman vs. Superman And so in this movie, I couldn't stop myself from saying, "Why'd you say that name?"
Yeah, that's the first thing I thought when I heard Martha. I'm like, oh, that's a memory that I forgot
wish
about.
I didn't have.
I can't.
Oh God.
I can't believe Batman vs Superman actually ruined something. Not just was a bad movie, but ruined.
Why are you surprised? Zack Snyder, honestly, Dawn of the Dead was a pivotal moment in high school where I'm like, wow, they remade something that I love, and it's actually good. And I was excited.
Yes, that was good.
It was damn good. But then he got the keys to the kingdom, and it felt like he went unchecked for the longest time. Almost like, oh, that's the guy who did Until Dawn. Not Until Dawn. God, I can't even talk. That's the guy who did that amazing zombie film. We're going to trust him with everything going forward. So Dawn of the Dead, yeah, that gives him a free pass to do anything he wants in the future. And that's what it felt like, at least to me, watching him with every single franchise, just doing whatever, because the quality was always lacking, yet he always got more. It just felt like a kid playing with toys in a sandbox. Everything else didn't matter except for the fight scene, because the fight scenes always took place in these ridiculously boring Coliseum-esque giant open areas, and it just felt like a kid smashing two action figures together. And then you get to like Sucker Punch, which is another one of his offset movies where it's not a mainstream thing.
I loved Sucker Punch.
And it's like, yep, I tried.
It
is all style. It is all style
sweet.
and zero substance.
It doesn't have to be.
Zero substance.
It doesn't have to have substance. Have you
I
read the
love the way
novel?
that movie looked.
I love how it looks too, right? It looks great.
It's gorgeous.
In fact, I can say that about most Zack Snyder movies. They all look amazing.
That's
but
the problem. It looks
there
great.
are, I don't know what happens to the substance to those movies. Like, they're just so.
And that's what I'm so annoyed about, because I feel like Henry Cavill, at least from what I saw, because I've never really seen the movies, but I feel like from what I saw, he was the perfect damn Superman, but he was just so misunderused. And that's, I see that a lot online, at least from people who follow this stuff pretty seriously, is that he had the shittiest luck draw in the fact that he was perfectly cast and just, they never really truly utilized what was there. So it upsets me that they're not using him for the new stuff with James Gunn going forward, but that's what happens, and here we are again with yet another reboot.
Yeah.
It's not a reboot.
It was a little
though.
on the nose to use Henry Cavill because he was Jesus. So
That's Jim Caviezel.
God damn it! It is a different person, isn't it? Shit.
Yep.
Just before I forget, you know what's actually truly incredible? Is I was talking about Scrooge before, and that's also Richard Donner.
Huh?
As I was talking, I was like, wait, isn't that Richard Donner? And I just did a double check, and yes, he also directed Scrooge. Hell yeah. Scrooge and Goonies, two of my favorites. Miss that, man.
Anyone else have some history with this film?
I have friends who are big Superman, like huge Superman fans, and that's it. Like, I don't go out of my way to see Superman films. I just haven't. I think I rented Superman 3 once or twice back when you could rent VHS tapes and I was, a quarter of my age.
I feel sad about that statement.
Because of Office Space, right?
No. It's because it was on the wall and it was on the wall of kids' films.
Oh my.
Because it's PG. They're all PG.
Well, I guess 2 would make a much
This
worse
one's PG?
children's movie.
Child pornography, Superman, the movie is PG.
I thought,
Oh my
is it not PG-13? Is it just PG? I mean, it's a 70s film.
I thought you said PG. I don't think PG-13 existed yet.
In the 70s?
Yeah, PG-13 didn't exist until the 80s with, all the goodness that
Indiana
started.
Jones.
Yeah, because you got Spielberg really pushing the boundaries with Indiana Jones, and then also, why am I having such a hard time thinking today? Oh no! Scary movie, TV, little girl, haunted house, built. They moved the bot or the
Poltergeist.
Thank you,
Poltergeist?
Poltergeist. It did start with a P. Poltergeist and Indy were really like the two that really pushed the envelope. Where they're like, wait, we can't keep doing this. We need to protect kids somehow.
They should have protected a kid in this movie with like just some well-placed objects, so he wouldn't have to walk out of that spaceship completely
natural.
naked.
It's natural.
It doesn't need to be.
It's natural.
Suddenly Ken's a Puritan?
Yeah, I'm confused by this. It's
I
not
also
like
had
this was a sexualized
That's just it.
thing.
I also had a take from. I watched this with my family, and that was also a point of uncomfort for everyone. It's just like, It's when you sexualize a scene, that's when it's uncomfortable. It's literally just a naked child who's coming out of a crashed spaceship. That's okay.
No.
I don't know. There's this is an argument for another time, I guess.
It is.
Knowing Hollywood, no, that's not okay.
See, and that's why it needs to be a full other argument, because knowing Hollywood, there's a whole other like fucking layer to this.
Jesus, yes.
Oh God. I will say
Yeah.
the first
Anyways.
like
So-
45 minutes of this film is such a good like introduction to the origin of Superman that I would love to have them just modernize this introduction.
Mm-hmm.
Granted, the pacing's really fucking weird and there's a lot of time jumps, but we'll get past
Yeah.
that.
Thank God for the time jumps. They lived in the moment for so long for everything else.
Yeah. For me personally, I would have loved to have seen him growing up through like grade school and
Right?
shit.
I'm like, why
Like,
did they jump
jump
to
straight
high
to high school.
school? Come on!
I want
watch
to
Little
see
Superman.
I want to see him like destroying kids on the playground and things like that, and like trying to learn how to like cope and restrain himself in things like dodgeball and whatever else.
I'm pretty sure that's what the TV show Smallville was all about.
I don't know. I've never watched it.
Smallville did a pretty good job. I mean,
know
it's
Reeve,
like two
from what I
episodes,
read,
like,
was he
like
was
an
actually in
episode
there.
or maybe 2 episodes of him like growing up.
Yeah,
It's a lot more like in the like high school to college range.
and that's what they always seem to focus on because I guess it's more interesting and easier to act out. But everyone who I've ever known who has seen Smallville has nothing but massive praise for that show. Everybody constantly
I
recommended
loved watching
it.
Smallville when it came
Just
out.
never got around
that was
to
that was a weekly thing. That was definitely a ritual. Was watching Smallville.
I used to like Lois and Clark.
haven't
See, I
watched
watched
more
the
of that.
shit out of
Oh, my
Lois and Clark
parents-
when I was a kid.
Lois
My
and
mom
Clark,
watched the
yeah.
crap out of it. It was always on.
It was Lois and Clark,
Yeah.
and then what was that other TV show where the guy got the newspaper a day in advance?
Oh, early edition.
Early edition, yeah.
Early edition.
It was
yeah.
Lois and Clark in early edition.
See, this
good
is
times.
like carving out a niche in my memories, like that, Lois and Clark, and like The Critic, like all that good stuff, all in that little time frame. It's so good.
Joe, did you ever get to your history apart from Lois and Clark?
My history is actually real easy to cover here. So, as I was born shortly after this movie came out, and so therefore I didn't watch it for a few years. And by that time, there was more than one Christopher Reeve Superman movie. So, as I kept growing up, more came out, of course, because money. I could not, right now, even after watching this, say for sure when scenes in my brain happen, because they all smash together. So, I was very confused when I saw Zod, because I was like, wait a minute. I thought this was 2,
Yeah.
not 1. What's going on? And then they just fuck off into the Phantom Zone, and I'm like, that's fine, whatever. Then I just sat through towards the last half hour of the movie because stuff happens, and I'm like, is this where he goes back in time? Why is he going back in time in the first Superman movie? Sorry, I'm jumping way ahead. But
No, that's all right.
There's a lot of things to say.
it's like mishmash. I don't know what happens in which movie because child watched them. I would jump in halfway through the film, watch it because it's on HBO or something, and they all become just a massive Superman. Doesn't
Honestly,
matter
Joe,
what movie it is.
I'm in the exact same boat. I've seen bits and pieces and like a scene here and a scene there. So I had no idea what was going to be in this one because I've always just kind of caught it randomly. Either my parents were watching it or it was on TV or something, but I never actually sat down and watched a full one of these. So I was waiting for like his laser vision. I guess that's in 2, I guess. Also the scene
He
where...
still doesn't know what he's got.
Yeah.
He's still young Superman. Like, this is him exploring, the day after exploring all of his, like, newfound goodness that he's
but
got.
no,
Yep.
that was like 12 years that he was in the Fortress of Solitude. Because they say it was going to take him 12 years to learn all of these things.
No, it took him a year traveling metaphysically from his place where he is to his homeland and back, which is 12 years in real time because that's how space works. And because they can say time is wibbly wobbly like that, it makes that the reversing the Earth not just kill people, but actually just turn time backwards. They set up weird time things so that way they could have time things at the end.
Into that later, but there's like a whole thing on that online. But anyway,
Which, speaking of Zod, is do you think they set up that Zod thing as a thing to be like, well, Jor-El is a contrasting person, be like, well, maybe the Zod guy was right, and they should have had these new things because these people are just like,
so
we're gonna
now
hang
you're
out,
a
get
Zod
burned by.
apologist?
I'm just saying, this movie in particular, like, he doesn't. He's obviously egomaniacal. You will bow to me. Every criminal in this movie admits to being a criminal. It's actually kind of maddening.
except for the council, because they killed everybody, including themselves, but they refused to admit it.
Exactly.
Everyone's wrong but them.
They killed everyone. Maybe Zod could have done it. I mean, 30 days isn't enough to actually like save anyone except for the baby Superman.
Yeah.
That was a real big baby, too.
The baby had a giant head.
He had a
giant
very
head.
large head.
That child's head made me uncomfortable when it came out of that and standing next to the truck. I was just like, oh boy. I guess.
Certainly
How
made
many
a
times
choice.
did that baby do that unprompted? Just, damn it, put that down.
Put the tractor down.
What are you doing?
Damn it.
Anyways, yeah, let's
Yeah, no, Superman is responsible for Jonathan's death, right? So he almost drops the car on his for no reason. He's picking up the truck for no reason.
yeah.
And almost gives Jonathan a heart attack right there, and then forces Jonathan to race him. Obviously, dumb because that was genetic. Because he was in good shape at that point, he would have been able to handle the running. I'm just making jokes.
Speaking of jokes, oh my god, is the joke writing in this movie just on point.
Dan, what happened to your cat?
Oh,
silence.
I was going to say, I see the cone of shame.
he has kitty pink eye, so he's got to be coned, and he hates it.
I'm not gonna lie. I am surprised that this is the first time in my many years on this earth of hearing of an animal who licks their butt for a living having pig
Cats
eye.
have a form of constant conjunctivitis. That's part of the whole upper respiratory issues that cats always have. And for whatever reason, on Wednesday, he just suddenly had a really goopy left eye. Or no, it was Tuesday night. And then Wednesday, we took him in, and they're just like, yep, he's going to need eye drops. And every time I put the eye drops in his eyes, the goop gets worse.
Wonderful.
Yeah, it's great. He's
Cool.
the
Where
poor
were
man
we?
is-
Well, not a
So anyways, I was going to
well,
say...
not a cone of shame, but you know who needed to go to fucking horny jail? That Lois
Lois-
Lane.
My God, was she horny on Maine? Oh my
I'm
God!
meeting Superman for the first time. I'm gonna wear a sheer nightie and
Ask about
and
his
constantly
penis.
stare longingly. Yeah. Check out my underwear. What color are they? Just it's a lot.
Compose unnaturally long poetry while flying.
Okay, so
That poetry.
I feel like we need to really rewind things back here and get to the start.
Yes.
Okay, so going all the way back to the beginning, I thoroughly enjoyed the effects.
Until he
Of
was
his home
running,
planet.
they spent so much time on the special effects in this film, and then they blow it when he's running fast.
Hot take, I actually thought that the running scene was really nice.
Oh,
For
God.
a split second I looked at it, I'm like, I'm watching the movie and I'm like, I'm gonna scrutinize the hell out of this. And then when it shifted for the second time showing him running, like even further, I was like, okay, I like this. It could have been a lot worse, and they actually did a good job for the time. I think back to like the most recent Flash movie and his awful, awkward running.
Oh
when
God,
he's
the running in slow mo, super slow mo.
the running walk.
Oh,
yeah, so
God.
like this did it right, even though it's still got some issues. I think it did okay for the time. But the effects of Superman's home planet were great. I got like a Hoth like Star Wars feel from it. It felt amazing. All that was pretty well done. And my favorite effect was the high contrast white suits.
Oh my God!
I don't know how they did that,
That's
but that was
just-
so
it all-
cool.
It's
I
all
love that.
reflective. I looked it up. It was all.
I know.
They hit the suits were all made out of a reflective material, and they hit all
Yeah.
the suits with a specific colored light.
That's so cool. Because, yeah, it stands out, and it was one of the first things that made me actually go, wow, that is a cool effect. I wonder how they did that. That was pretty neat. I like that.
It's kind of the same thing that lightsabers are based on. Same idea.
That's sweet.
I was going to say, you can definitely tell this is coming off the heels of Star Wars a year before, trying to do something really neat with, like, just the intro with all the weird
3D,
the whooshing,
like the trailer with all the 3D whooshing and
overlays and stuff like that.
Yeah.
Which, speaking of which...
Some of it was very cool.
Speaking
Some of it looked very bad.
Some of it, yeah. But speaking of which, you get that John Williams score, which I had never heard before because, again, I haven't seen this movie. I knew he did the soundtrack. One man should not be responsible for like 90% of my freaking nostalgia.
Right?
This is just unbelievable. I mean, seriously, Indiana Jones, Jurassic Park, Jaws, Home Alone, Star Wars.
And now
It's just
Superman.
unbelievable how much. Yeah, it's unbelievable.
He's
I
busy.
still have the theme song stuck in my head. I don't
It's
know
a
how many
good
times
theme
it
song.
plays.
It's an earworm.
Oh my god.
John Williams is the king of, hey, you need something that people are going to be humming 5 years, 10 years from now? Sure, give me 5 minutes. Let me go hammer something out.
This is more than 10 years.
Yeah, here we are. It's unbelievable, but
Yeah, the opening credit sequence with the music and the sound effects, still love it right now.
It doesn't
The only
feel-
thing is it goes on.
It's so
It's
long.
the 70s, so it goes on.
that was
so
the first
long.
complaint with everyone I was watching with was, I think one said, "Oh, thank God it's over," because it did take a very long time to get through.
It doesn't feel like a 70s
Yes.
film. Like that trait, like aside from the length,
No,
it's
No.
just for whatever reason the opening credits just feels like 10 years early. It feels like a
Yeah,
late 80s,
right.
early 90s film with the way that the trailer
it does have that
opens.
80s vibe to it. Yes, yes.
I'm guessing that they had to have the entirety drawn out of the intro credits because Marlon Brando was in this movie. I guarantee Marlon Brando's like, you're going to put my name by itself on the front of this movie. And they're like, fine. We're going to put everybody's name by itself at the start of this movie.
So I did do some searching into that too, because I was curious, because I know that I've always known that this is a Richard Donner film. I knew that from watching Goonies back in the day, which is why Sloth has a Superman shirt on and everything else. I've always wondered, if this is such a beloved film, why didn't he direct the other ones? And then I dug into it and found out that he did not get along with the producers so much on this film that by the second film, they actually fired him and replaced him at the end of filming-ish. Like, they were almost completed with the film, and they kicked him off and replaced him with someone else. To your point with Marlon Brando, he was actually very present in Superman 2, apparently, but they cut all of his scenes out for the most part because Richard Donner requested it. He requested that he not be, his name not be on the movie at all. And the film just had a wildly different tone than what Richard Donner anticipated, which is why 2, I guess, is still kind of held in like some regard as being a good sequel with flaws. Whereas 3 is just batshit awful because it wasn't any involvement whatsoever with Richard Donner. But yeah, I was surprised at how much Marlon Brando was in this. And it's been a long time since I've seen him in anything. So it's kind of cool watching him again. I like that.
I understand he could be difficult to work with.
Yeah.
That's a nice way of
Well,
saying
I mean,
that.
not anymore.
I'm
sure he's pretty amenable now.
Joe, are you saying he was so
Oh,
difficult
wait.
to work with that he doesn't act anymore?
Is he still alive?
No, he's gone for a long time.
Let's say. Oh, I guess that does make you a lot easier to work with.
It's always fun to bump into stuff from, certain people that you hear about and stuff like that. When I did an audio film class way back, they had recordings, the raw recordings of a commercial he was doing, and it just, chef's kiss of listening to someone have a fucking meltdown over recording a radio commercial about peas. It's
Oh boy.
outstanding.
Oh boy.
It puts the fuck it, we'll do it live to shame.
I was just thinking as you said all that about the fuck it, we'll do it live. I love that clip because as wild and crazy as it is and how much I also don't care for the guy, he really turned that around with supreme professionalism at the end where he just did it live and actually did come up with what he wanted to say off the top of his head. It sounded infinitely better than what they were forcing him to try to say. But you can see the frustration because he's just furious the entire time he's trying to deliver what doesn't make sense in his mind. But yeah.
Personally, I don't like the Krypton segments of this movie.
Yeah?
They seem very forced.
I'm like, I don't even know what I'm looking at.
That's the hard part. They don't really have a lot of time for exposition. You are thrown right into the movie as there's this cataclysmic event about to unfold. You don't know why. You're not really explained why. It's just, planet's going to blow up in X amount of days. Oh, okay, it's going to blow up. Why?
You don't really need to know why. If you're looking for science, this is not the movie, because
No,
I guess.
how everybody in this movie knew, like, oh, Superman's going to a different planet. That means he's going to be dense and also be able to fly because, and he's going to be really strong. It's like, how do you know this? What?
He was he was an
frickin-
intelligent
okay.
scientist who is light years above his
He's an
peers.
intelligent scientist.
Kryptonians are canonically thousands of years ahead in science compared to Earth.
I'll give you
And
that.
how do they not know what a supernova is and that it's going to eat their planet?
Because only Marlon Brando knew, and it apparently was a conspiracy theory he was trying to peddle, and the rest of the council was mad at him and told him, "Go away, you lunatic," until everything was shaking around them, and they're like, "Oh, wait, what's happening?" Yeah.
They got their comeuppance, along with the rest of the planet. To be fair, the planet was doomed. I love the way the planet exploded.
Yeah, just boom, gone.
There's like, yeah, it was filled with C4 or something, because that was a big explosion.
There were two of them.
The sun
The
blew
sun
up, and then the
planet.
planet. It was great.
That was the first thing I frantically Googled while watching this movie is, if these supreme beings were so intelligent and light years above us, like, why didn't they leave their planet? Why is Superman the only one being ejected off of the rock? And it just comes down to stubbornness. They were too egotistical and thought that they knew everything, and their planet exploded somehow for reasons.
It makes sense when you put it in terms of people should know better, but they will reject stuff to be comfortable.
It's all hubris.
If it makes them uncomfortable, people are more resistant to listen because they want to stay comfortable.
Okay, so I can understand the Kryptonians having this knowledge and being able to use it and not necessarily have to explain it. But please, for the love of God, why did Hackman understand that Krypton, a bit of the planet, is going to kill Superman? Like, and also let's just talk about that just for a second.
Ken, this is Lex Luthor. This is Lex Luthor you're talking about.
This whole planet is made out of Krypton. If these fuckers get a skin knee, they're dead.
Yeah.
Because this planet will kill them. Like, these two things do not make sense in my
If
brain.
I understand it correctly, it's because of Clark being introduced to the light of our sun, Earth's sun, Sol. It's the yellow light from Sol that makes him weak to the material from his home planet. That's...
How does Hackman know this?
I don't know. I can't tell you
Because
that.
he's Lex
I have no
Luthor.
idea.
He's
How
the
does he know
smartest man.
anything
He is
about...
the DC version of Mr. What, Mr. Why am I having...
He's
Incredible?
the DC
Dude,
version
I
of Stark.
can't talk
He's the
today.
DC version
I
of
can't
Stark.
Talk today.
Tony Stark.
No, he's not the DC version of Tony Stark. He's the Reed Richards of the DC universe. He's the
There you go.
smartest
Reed
That's
man
Richards,
true.
alive.
Yeah, Reed Richards.
He knows everything, and that's why. He's Lex Luthor. Canonically, he is the smartest man alive. He's intelligent beyond belief. So that's why he knows.
And yet
You don't
still
need to know
hires a
anything else.
dumbass
Two
to
of
work
them.
for him.
That's my biggest gripe with this movie is for the smartest man alive, he has an absolute imbecile working for him just to make it like the 1960s Batman and have silly moments.
That's the thing.
And it ends with him saying that he's the world's best, exclaiming while standing in a prison courtyard, "I am
Ripping
the
his
world's
toupee
greatest
off.
criminal mastermind."
Ripping his toupee off for no reason other than to show I'm bald like Lex Luthor in the comics.
Like, they alluded that he was bald. They're
With
all
the
the
wigs,
wigs all over the place. Yeah.
All the wigs
to
are
have
like,
but to have
that
it
was
be a
great.
random throwaway scene where he's just like taking his hat off to shout at someone, essentially, it doesn't make sense. It's like, why? Why would you do?
You're telling
It's the film.
You're telling me this guy's the smartest guy in the world, but he admits to being the world's greatest criminal mastermind in the place where it matters the most to not say that.
Yes, when he should be silent. That he should not be incriminating himself.
The film goes from this like excellent set of exposition.
Yes.
And then the minute that Lex Luthor sets foot on stage, the movie goes from like, this is trending pretty good. This is a great way to continue to push the film. And then Lex Luthor shows up, and it just tanks.
Exactly. I would completely
The quality
agree.
of the film just absolutely obliterates itself.
I would agree. The exposition is serious with heartwarming and funny all at the same time, all leading up to really good scenes, really good stuff. And then Lex Luthor comes in, and like I said, it's almost like an injection of that 1960s silliness of Batman, the TV series. And you got that goofiness, and it's like, okay, this is his arch enemy. This is what we get now for the rest of the film, is you get this pendulum swinging back and forth between Superman and his stuff, back over to the silliness of this group that can't get anything done, back and forth, back and forth. And a good contrast is Batman 1989, where it maintains its tone throughout the entire film. Joker is goofy and he is silly, but he is absolutely terrifyingly maniacal in the way that he executes things and just randomly kills for no reason. It's
right, yeah,
it's
the
complete
tone
difference.
doesn't change.
Tone doesn't change in Batman.
He's just
versus
silly.
Superman. Yeah, Superman's... I don't
the way
know.
he conducts himself is silly, but the movie does not change to a silly tone.
Exactly.
Like in this movie where Gene Hackman, what's his name, Otis,
Ned
goes
Beatty.
in, puts
Ned
in the
Beatty.
thing from his arm.
Yeah.
Puts in the thing from his arm. They go out. He says, yeah, put in the thing, the three, and then the guy's like, oh, there's a fourth. And you're like, okay, we have to redo this. All of a sudden, they have an entire house that they can move. As if he had a backup plan that he knew that this was going to screw up, and so he didn't just send it first. Of course, firemen are pervs, so of course they're going to...
Army, Navymen?
That was probably
Navymen.
That was
Or
probably...
Army.
They
right.
were not firemen. They were
Sorry, not
Army
firemen.
military.
That was probably my biggest... Okay, out of the entire
Sorry, it was
film,
California. I assumed fire.
I know we're talking about good stuff and bad stuff kind of intermixed.
Yep.
My biggest negative takeaway in the entire film, even outside tonal and everything else, is the suspension of disbelief. And maybe this is because I'm watching it now versus back in the day when maybe most of the stuff would have worked. There's no fucking way you're transporting 2 nuclear warheads cross country on flatbed trucks with like 4 cop cars, not even military vehicles really, like 4 cop Chevy Blazers trailing it. And then every time it has to stop for something that in real life they would never literally stop because that's like protocol. You keep fucking moving. They stop to check on a pedestrian's car trashed in the road. Let's eject literally every single person off of every vehicle to go stand around this person. Have nobody sitting in the vehicle guarding anything. Nothing. The suspension of disbelief is not there. I understand that there are some comments to be made about, the government and the silliness in just some of the movie, but there's no way I can truly believe any of what happens once those nukes hit the road and start moving. I can't.
That's the point where it's like, that's the tone, like a completely
It's silly.
different tone shift in the movie where it gets silly.
It's like it's a 60s Batman silly. It's like, oh, we got nukes on flatbeds and there's a dame in the road. Oh, everybody stop and ogle over her while Knucklehead goes and messes with it. Just no, that's not how things work. And I get it. It's a movie and I'm being way too critical on something that's a movie, but
right. And I think that's like, this is also, obviously the time went way longer than it should be.
2+ hours.
Like, it's a superhero movie.
Yeah.
It doesn't need to be serious. It shouldn't be serious.
2+ hours is a little much. Yeah. It's
that mentality of like, this is a superhero movie went way further into the future than this needed to be. Like that is into the 90s, even early thousands. It's just like, we shouldn't take this movie seriously while we're making it. It's just a comic book movie. And that's how we got Batman and Robin.
Yeah, that's true.
Which I think I enjoy Batman and Robin because I don't have to do this. I can sit there and watch it and be like, no, this is dumb.
That's true.
That credit card, perfect. Or is that a different one? No, that was Batman and Robin.
For this movie, though, I like the fact that we're not getting dirty. We're not getting like, oh man, life sucks. It's like, no, this is Superman.
It's supposed to be.
He's a guy who flies around wearing a cape and he wears bright blue. Let's keep this light.
Yes, and that's the biggest complaint I hear about the Snyder movies is it's so damn dark for something that's supposed to be so hopeful. Superman represents hope and freedom and everything. Him flying around, bright colors, bright colored suit. optimistic attitude, that's Superman.
I love the fan edit.
Snyder
of Man
movies
of
is like
Steel.
Batman and
Absolutely
Yeah.
love the fan edit that somebody went through.
oh
and,
yeah, no, I saw that
and
where they
cleaned
change the saturation
all
and everything
the
else.
saturation, so it's bright.
Mm-hmm.
It's bright like the original films. Like Superman's suit is just wildly different when they take that filter off. It's so
It
good.
is. Even something as minor as the sky being lit up. It's just Snyder. It sucks because Dark Knight was such a damn good movie,
gritty.
and that's just it. Dark Knight was phenomenal, but Dark Knight needed to have been its own movie. But unfortunately, the greed and the annoyance of every single producer is like, oh, that worked. We need to replicate that now. Everything has to be Dark Knight going forward for the next decade or more. Everything's got to be dark and gritty because that's why people liked it. No, they liked it because it was a cohesive story, well written, well acted,
Batman can
really
be
well
dark
done.
and gritty. That's what.
Exactly.
Exactly.
That's what.
But they
Bat-
didn't-
That's
that's
what the
the
Dark Knight
disconnect.
comics were.
Yeah.
That's the disconnect.
Like the entirety of the feeling of that story and that was dark and gritty. Like that was the way it was supposed to be displayed as.
yeah,
You're right. Yeah, Superman's supposed to be a little bit more hopeful and bright.
They even
and
call
I
it out in
completely
this
agree.
film.
Like,
When Superman says something about being swell, and Lois calls him out for using the word swell.
Yeah, well, he was gone for 12 years, so he's using 12-year-old lingo.
Yep.
That's like someone showing up and be like, oh, that's grody.
yeah, it's like Captain America being unfrozen and still talking like it's the frickin' 50s or 40s.
Although she reacted to him saying swell like he said moist.
Yeah, that's fair.
Yeah.
It's like, it's disgusting. Like, really?
Yeah, I
I
seriously,
guess.
She's a weird one.
I seriously could not agree more. Like, just how bright and cheerful it is. I was so happy watching this because it's the Superman I was told existed versus the one that I've always seen people talk about because of the Snyder movies.
Okay. So one thing I really did love about this, it really does show that, people, common complaint with Superman in general is how can people not tell Clark Kent is Superman?
Ooh.
He's got glasses. Clark Kent does not.
Cavill
You're
proved
watching
it.
this movie, you're like, oh, wait, no, that absolutely makes sense because nobody's paying attention to Clark Kent. He carries himself in a way that does not have people watching him.
Yes.
Or having
He's
his every
meek.
move. Like, he is not just, he's just, nobody looks at him. He's invisible as Clark Kent. So there's no reason for them to make that connection.
I was gonna say that in the same vein as I will die on this hill to say that Michael Keaton is the epitome of Batman and Bruce Wayne because he effortlessly changes between the two without any fucking scrutiny whatsoever. You can tell that man was meant to play Batman and Bruce Wayne. Same point with this. Christopher Reeve as both Clark Kent and Superman is wildly, unbelievably it just works. As Clark Kent, he's completely different than he is as Superman. And it's not just a change of glasses. Like you said, it's demeanor.
He carries
it's tone,
himself totally
it's
different.
everything.
You can
He's
see
incredible in this. You can actually understand why people didn't pick up on it. It's so well done.
As Clark Kent, he hunches himself
Yes.
forward a little bit.
Yes, he's got that
which,
hunch.
he
makes him look a
he
little
keeps
bit
himself-
smaller.
Yes.
He's always
Inward.
pushing up his glasses. Like,
Yup.
he's just got that different demeanor to shrink himself down and make himself more invisible.
It was
which
so
is,
well done.
in and of itself, a superpower.
Absolutely. And I did get a massive kick. I laughed my ass off at when the very first time he has to transition, he runs to a phone booth, but it's a modern phone booth, which is just the plexiglass walls. Just kind of looks at it and goes somewhere else. That was great. I love that. The only transition I didn't like is when he's
falling out of the building.
out of the window and then there's just a flash of light and he's in his suit. What the hell was that?
It just fades. It doesn't
Yeah.
even flash a light. It fades from suit to you watch the entire fade.
It's a very Wonder Woman-esque transition.
Yeah.
It's a choice.
Yeah. I don't know. I don't know why that happened. But also, can we talk about that roof scene?
Because it was
What?
in the portion of the film that was beginning to lean into the silly.
True.
That's
My
why.
God, you're right.
Right.
There's a portion in the film where we jump a shark and don't come
It's
back.
It's the second that
Is
Lex
it-
Luthor shows up. It's right at it's
did
that point.
So did Lex Luthor show up before or after that total Final Destination bullshit scene where they're getting on the helicopter and the screw unlooses?
No, he
itself?
shows up after.
He comes
he's
in after
That
he's
is
after
absolutely
that,
what
yeah.
I was asking.
So is the helicopter
Okay.
really the point where things start turning?
Oh, maybe
Because
it is
that
the
was
helicopter.
I'm watching this and I'm just like, this is Final Destination. Like, what the hell's going on with that cable?
And then all of the civilians congregate underneath where the helicopter is going to fall to.
Well, it's just like Ghostbusters. Everybody underneath Dana's apartment building watching as giant chunks of the building come raining down.
Yeah, people
keep
have no
people
self-preservation.
People see what they want to see.
Yeah, I think that's the part where it gets really silly.
I think the helicopter was the point where I first noticed in the movie, like, huh. Like, I actually sat back and just went, huh.
Was that our first actual view of Superman? Did Superman make this movie silly?
I think that was the first view of... Yes, that was actually the first one of Superman, because he was wandering outside as Clark, and then that's the first change, where he ran past the phone booth and then changed and went up to save the day. Because he saves her...
we saw him in uniform once before that,
Flying
when
out
he
of
was
the
done
Fortress
with
of
the
Solitude.
Fortress of Solitude.
Yeah, exactly.
Right. Yeah, I'll still say it's Superman.
In the vein of zaniness, but also, like, walking a thin line, I both love and hate Jonathan's death. I love him grabbing his arm and going, oh no. It's both funny and awful at the same time. I don't know why. I love and hate that scene. I love and hate it so much.
I wonder
And I
how
kind
many
of wish
takes
that when I
scene
pass away-
took. Like how many different notes
Right?
are just like you gotta do something to sell the fact that you're having a heart attack.
I kind of wish that my last phrase would be, oh no. Just, oh no. And that's the last thing I utter. Although one of my friends back in the day, we always told ourselves that when we do pass away on our deathbeds, the last thing we want to say to everybody surrounding us is, there's too many of them. That's the last thing we want to say. Leave them in suspense and guessing.
Or you can write Kurt Russell on your desk.
Yeah. No, I'm going to set up a zany scavenger hunt and have all kinds of things set up after my death, and that's going to be my last thing I say is the first clue. Keep me alive as I'm gone. Anyways. But yeah, oh no.
It's a good idea. I like that
the
idea.
Oh no. I like the oh no a lot. And he only really, he ran 5 feet. He didn't really work himself up too much. He ran like 5 feet up the road and stopped and went, oh no. Must have been a hell of a 5
Right,
foot.
yeah, no, he wasn't. It was uphill. Uphill runs are terrible.
That's true. I think my favorite part of that scene too, I forgot to mention this earlier, is the fact that we see the exact same truck with the exact same flat tire, presumably 18 years later, out in front of the farm. What? I don't get that. So the same truck blows the rear driver's side tire when his pod crashes down, and they show it being fixed, right? But then he comes home, racing home from school, racing the other car to get home, and he stops out in front of the farm. Out in front of the farm is the exact same truck parked out front, jacked up on the pipe jack again, missing the exact same tire again, with the tire sitting in the back of the bed. Like, what's the issue with that truck?
Did we actually see him fix the truck?
They never
Did
fixed
he just
the
like
truck.
just saw
hold it
Clark
up from the
pick up
back
the
and,
truck.
and let it drive home, pretending to be a tire in the back, and they just left it and never worked on it again? Like, I don't...
Naked child
Or it's
pushing
just
a
a
car.
visual cue to let you know that he ran home.
I guess
I don't know.
I don't know.
I didn't notice. I just assume farm trucks are always broken.
Something about 40s era rubber in the war and something like that.
Yeah.
But what I do like about this movie, which starts with, I think, that scene more so than the first scene, is most of the scenes, almost every single scene in this movie, has a purpose to be there. Like, that one is like Superman finding that what's going to be the problem is he's not going to be able to help everyone. He's not going to be able to save lives until the end of the movie, where he can save lives because he can just do that now. A little bit confusing at the end there. We can go back if we want. But yeah, it serves as like a really good pivotal moment. Everything like feels like it's going slow and chugging along, but then you hit that moment. You're like, okay, this is why we're here. Superman has to have something that makes him a grounded individual. Jonathan, he couldn't save Jonathan. That's a thing.
Yeah.
He can't bring people back to life. He's got to save them while he's still alive.
Which
then-
saves Lois Lane.
I was going to say he could just keep spinning that planet backwards until Jonathan, just before he runs up the hill and says, whoa.
Hey, that bridge is
Don't do
crossed.
that.
I mean, what does that say about Jonathan compared to Lois Lane? Does he favor her more? I mean,
Well, I'm pretty sure he's more interested in one than the other in certain ways.
true. Plus, he also didn't know how to fly at that point or anything about himself at that point. So there's no way he could have saved Jonathan because that was before he even knew what he was capable of.
He knew he could run fast, and he knew he was strong. Because he booted that football, and I really was afraid that football was
I
going to hit
loved
that
that
train.
scene.
I thought
It
that
looked
football
great.
was
And
going to hit that
someone
train.
somewhere died from impact of a
Football
football.
traveling at terminal velocity.
Or some building or something sustained incredible amounts of damage. And as they surveyed the damage and rubble, they found a football and were confused. That's all it comes down to.
No one understands why this airplane went down, but
Oh, no.
we found a
Oh, no.
flat football embedded in the pilot's face.
God. Yeah, bird strikes are nothing compared to this. But no, Joe, you reminded me. Air Force One. I think one of the things, suspension of disbelief again, instead of... So there's two big key takeaway things that bother me. One is the nukes. The other is this is an abnormal week of crazy, unbelievable disasters happening one after another that if Superman wasn't around, who the hell did these people piss off? Because you got the helicopter randomly crashing Final Destination style. You've got all this other crap happening one after another. And then frickin' Air Force One's flying around and loses an engine from a lightning strike and starts to go down, which is not how planes work.
Yeah, after Clark saves Lois, says, still statistically the safest way to travel.
That
and
happens.
then Air Force One goes down.
Exactly. Like, what in the world is happening this week? Like, why is this all a thing? But I don't know, is it the butterfly effect? Maybe that's what it is. Maybe it's the butterfly effect. Maybe the world's angry that Superman exists, and now it's doubling down on all the natural disasters and things that are happening.
It's purely the tonal shift. It's just the tonal shift of the movie.
This is why Jor-El says, don't interfere with human history.
Yeah, it's the natural reaction. The universe had a pendulum swing by having Superman stopping people from dying, so then the universe is like, wait a minute, we need to right this ship, because all that stuff was supposed to happen.
Oh, so
And
this
then
is
now
Final
the world
Destination.
is being, the world is being demented by extra strong forces against it to try and counteract the Superman.
I could see
That's
that.
good. So why was he able to at the end of the movie? By the way, when he ripped the car off the door, I think that was probably the most impressed I was. It just looks so effortless, and I don't know how they would have done it back then before CGI, like maybe on a string or something.
Yeah, there's some good
But
effects
it
in
looks
this.
so good.
There's some
so
good
many
effects
good
and some
effects,
bad
and
effects.
there's so many terrible effects.
The bad effect that sticks out in my mind when he takes that green rod and throws it, they have a blue screen over the top of the green, and so half of the rod
Disappears.
is just
Yep.
not there.
I kind of like it.
I was going to say bad effects when Lois and him are flying. First off, she would be freezing to death with how high they went. They went above the damn clouds. But then also on top of that, the way she's being held by pinkies and fingertips and even just a hand holding a hand,
Lois's bones
she'd be
are not.
falling behind, not perfectly in a T side by side. That doesn't work that way.
Yeah.
There's
Superman just snaps
somebody
her
out
arm
there
like a
saying
twig.
things like there's a aura around him that causes floating, so like she benefits from that too or something like that. But that doesn't make sense since it's supposed to be he's just lighter than the atmosphere can give him credit for, and that's why he can fly according to this movie.
Yeah.
There's some inconsistencies.
You jogged my memory because he did mention the thing about Peter Pan earlier. Peter Pan is able to make other people fly because he's got that magic, and then also Tinkerbell's whatever the hell she's got.
Dust.
So yeah, it gives you the temporary ability to fly because you're flying along with Peter Pan. Versus he doesn't have that. So yeah, that's actually a good call out.
But the same thing. As soon as they stop holding hands, she falls.
And terrorizes
that
the shit out of her.
happened-
Yes. What a wonderful
How that
first
happened, I don't know. I feel like he did that on purpose.
And she was perfectly fine when she caught him, or he caught her, and then brought her back up to fly again some more. It'd be like, no, dude, put
me
me
the
down.
date.
fuck
Right. We're
down.
done. We
We
are
are
done.
You can't
done.
keep a hold of me. Done.
no, again-
No, I'm not. I didn't ask for that.
Again, she's right back in horny jail because right away, the second that he fucking embraces her and starts spiraling around, it's all is forgotten. Almost went into cardiac arrest, falling down, but it's okay. Now we're embraced. Things are good.
She had some poetry she had to write.
And then
Yeah,
and then on the flight home, he properly holds her like a gentleman. On the flight back,
Oh, yeah.
After
Come on.
scanning to see what color her underwear is. Again, the perfect first date. Perfect first date.
How many planters are made out of lead?
back in the
Not many.
'60s.
It was the 70s. Who knows?
This is the 70s.
70s?
Almost the 80s.
I don't think that happens anymore,
So-
but don't make your planters out of lead, people. It'll get in your
Krypton
food.
blows
Yeah,
up
unless-
in 38.
Well, don't lick your
That's
planters.
fair. So Krypton blows up in 38. It takes him 21 years to get from Krypton to Earth. There's a whole
I thought it was
there's
12.
a whole
12 for a
breakdown.
round trip.
Neil deGrasse Tyson did a breakdown and says that there's no way that he would end up being a baby still.
While
Yeah.
being spoon-fed information that would make the public education system drool.
So
He learned a lot in those 21 years.
Clark is a child in
He had
the
no other
It's
choice.
done during brainwashing
40s and 50s?
like that the movie where they hold your eyes open and force you to watch
Clockwork
it.
Orange.
Clockwork Orange. Yep.
Yeah, Clockwork Orange. That's all I was thinking about. I'm like, man, they're forcing this kid into the Clockwork Orange PBS learning
Except for he's
system
not
there.
throwing up from violence. He's causing it.
They should have put it all to a fancy tune
Ultra-violent.
because I still remember the Schoolhouse Rock songs.
No. You had Marlon Brando talking in your ear for 21 years. Don't need any fancy
Like,
songs.
fine, Dad, I get it.
Another set piece / design choice I thoroughly enjoyed is I am a sucker for anything involving the old pneumatic tube tunnels from the New York subway system. I love that Lex Luthor's underground base is part of that old disheveled relic. I think about that. I think about Ghostbusters 2, like all the old tunnels being full of slime and them investigating that. Or, you got, Ninja Turtles 3? Yeah, that's the one where they go back in time.
Samurai.
They have their base in an old trolley car down in one of those tunnels as well. I love how that abandoned piece of New York always seems to come up in 70s and 80s movies for some reason. It's like this mythological thing that people didn't know existed, and there it is in all these movies. It's so cool.
I know I'm tainted by more modern takes, but saying smoking causes cancer and making a big deal about it, saying I don't drink before I fly, and I never lie all together is like,
Pinnacle
okay,
Superman.
we understand kids are going to watch this, even though it's not exactly designed all for kids.
It is.
And we just smashed it all together
It is
in
until
one
Lois
scene.
goes horny on me.
It's there not because kids. It's there because that's what Superman is. He's a Boy Scout.
Yeah.
And it's corny.
Like I said, I would love to get the first half of this film redone. Like
The
in a
first
modern
half?
setting. Yeah, the first half.
All
of the exposition. Like I would love to see Jor-El and oh god, what is Clark's mom's name?
I didn't catch it.
Martha.
No, not Martha.
Oh, yeah.
His birth mother.
But,
Oh,
but
it's
that's
something
what they said.
Clark
It's
Kent.
Martha.
Laura.
He shares
Laura.
that with
No,
Batman.
Lara, something like that.
Lara.
Yes.
They pronounce it silly though.
Like that whole all
Laura
of
Clark
Krypton, like all. I would love to get more of like Clark growing up in a modern film, and like get.
Maybe we'll
Maybe.
get that.
I doubt it at this
So
point.
Maybe that's what this new one's gonna
It's not.
do.
They already said it's not. It's not a reboot of any kind. It's not an origin story.
Okay.
If I had to pick something that I did not care for this movie, like most of the things I'm talking about, whatever, it's fun. But they did so much in this movie. And they made this such a long movie. I understand you want to have an origin. I understand you want to explain to people who might not know what Superman is, what he's all about, why he exists, and then go into that. But it took so long that it was basically 3 different movies at that point.
Yeah.
Pacing is so weird.
For like you said, like every scene seems like it has a reason to be there, but there are scenes that potentially could be taken out or dropped. I don't know. It's a weird beast of a film.
I would have loved
Right.
to
I don't know.
not
I don't
have
know what warrants it to be the 2+ hours.
anything with Lex Luthor. I would have loved it to just have been Clark, like becoming Superman and just ending.
Like doing some fun stuff, like saving cats and putting out fires and things like that. I don't know, it's cinema, Dan. You got to have some mustache twirling bad guy as the main focus, or else people don't care.
If you have a superhero,
You have to. Have
You need to
super
have-
villain. They could have totally just introduced Lex Luthor as the bad guy at the very end of the film, and then ended the film.
Yeah, could have.
that's a very modern
It is
take
a modern
because then
take,
that
yeah.
implies that there's going to be
But
more.
they did that.
But isn't
Which-
that what
That's
Zod
what
was?
Zod was.
I don't.
Oh,
That,
good point.
I was going to ask that question. Was that, or was that just setting up and using existing
They used. I mean,
comic
they
book
used a
Superman
lot
lore
of
to be
comic
like,
book canon, especially
look,
in the beginning.
No idea.
Yeah.
Jor-El, Superman's dad, a little bit, black and white with what, trying to find a balance. And this is why he is ready to send his child away, why he has a spaceship ready for his child and his child alone to send him off planet, because he knew this was going to happen. And so they had the Zod thing just there to be like showing the two differences of people so they could send him off. And then Superman 2 comes along and they're like, hey, remember those guys at the start of the movie that we sent off into space on the piece of glass? Let's bring them back.
And he didn't just send his baby into space. He sent his whole hippie commune's supply of crystals into space with his baby.
So many
'Cause
crystals.
he was just taking his glory-ass time stacking crystals by his baby, being like, one crystal? Now I'm
Yep.
going to take 10 minutes to grab one more crystal while everything is falling apart and the sun is exploding.
Don't pretend that you know how this crystal astrophysics works.
Yeah, my
It's a very exact science.
My son was very confused
bothered
watching
me
it.
that the one crystal that they put in there that's unique is the one that makes the Fortress of Solitude is green. When green crystals are
Yes.
bad.
Yes, that confused my son. Two things about the crystals confused him. One was the green, because he's like, isn't that kryptonite? And I'm like, I don't know. And then he throws it, it turns into this magic, terrarium grow a building thing out in the north. So that was cool. But then also the tubes. I caught on that the tubes are like a weird rudimentary computer system or advanced computer system where you put a crystal in a tube and it does things. He didn't catch that. So when the Fortress of Solitude's built and Clark's standing there, he's like, did they just get lazy building this? Why are there tubes instead of crystals? I'm like, no, I think it's like a computer. And sure enough, Clark grabs the crystal, puts it in one of the tubes, and then Marlon Brando appears.
I thought it was an organ.
Yeah, I could see that. Not a bone
Like,
organ
Clark,
like in
you're-
Goonies, but Richard Donner still loves his organs.
You're like, Clark, this is your Fortress of Solitude. You might as well play Phantom of the Opera and have your Solitude emo phase here real quick. Play a lot of organ. Get it out of your system.
Yep.
I guess the real question here is, where did he throw that crystal to create the Fortress of Solitude? Because he just said, I'm going north.
Yeah.
So is
Canonically, it's the
it in the
Arctic
Hudson
Circle.
Bay? Is it
Canada.
just north of Canada? Did he wait too long? Is he close to shore? Is it under Canadian control? Is it out in the open ocean where no one technically has control? Because building permits would come into play here at some point, and
Yeah.
global warming would come into play
I
about
was
if
just saying,
he's building
he's
it out
above
in
the
ice
law.
flows.
Well, wasn't there... So when he first starts wandering in the north, I thought I caught it, but was there a polar bear? There was something big
There was
and
a
white
bear-
that
there
moved
was
out
a
of the
There
water.
was
bear in the
no, it
water.
was a seal. I
Was it a
think.
seal? Like, there's
Okay.
I thought
some
it was a
animal.
seal.
Okay. So
it
that
looked weird.
So that potentially rules out the Antarctic.
Yeah, see, he said he was going north.
Yeah.
Which is why I thought Canada, and I'm like, well, maybe Greenland. I don't know if he veered off course.
Yeah.
Did you know that seal, about 30 years in the future, wrote the soundtrack to Batman and Robin?
What? I feel
Different
like
seal?
He was kissed by a rose,
Yes.
however that lyric goes.
So canonically, the Fortress of Solitude is located in the Arctic Circle.
So he can get away with building something without permits, is what we're getting at here.
yeah.
Is there land in the Arctic Circle, or is it just ice sheet?
Ice. Well, and it's not even an ice sheet anymore.
So
Just
then I was
broken up
right.
ice.
I was right, but I also answered my own question by saying it out loud, which makes me feel stupid because geography is not my strong point. But anyways, Antarctica is the
Oh, weird.
South Pole, and he
Yes.
went north. Which
Correct.
yes, we already
Oh,
discussed.
right.
Polar bears and shit like that is in the Arctic, not in Antarctica.
Correct.
So obviously he's in Arctic. He's above North America. That's yes.
Yeah, and penguins are in Antarctica, not in the Arctic.
Yes.
Correct.
Because that's where people get confused. Everybody online always seems to get confused about where polar bears live.
Well, yeah, I just know that they're always shown together in art, and then some nerd comes by and says, well, that would never happen in real life. They live on the opposite side of the planet. Like, yeah, that's fine. They're also animated, buddy. It's like they were drawn.
Well, it's like I also get hyper angry about, anything that images cavemen or human beings together with dinosaurs at the same time.
Yep, can't.
It's just fun, people. Let it go.
The amount of people who actually believe that human beings walked the earth at the same time as dinosaurs, though, is actually troublingly high. And it makes me nervous about
and
intelligence.
drove Cadillacs.
Yeah,
I saw the documentary Jurassic World 3. Isn't that true?
No! The damn tagline is separated by 65 million years. That's the tagline, damn it.
That's why I went with Jurassic World 3, not Jurassic Park, the original good movie. Actually, I haven't seen Jurassic World at 3 or 2.
3 is probably the biggest crap stain on the entire franchise. It jumps the shark and it jumps it hard.
I love the idea of dinosaurs living amongst people.
Is 3 the one with the Indoraptor, or is that 2?
That's 2. 3 is the one with locusts and genetically modified grain.
Oh, yeah.
Which is more in line with a Michael Crichton novel. But it is everything. The problem is they set up everything at the end of the second movie as dinosaurs are now free in the world and now human beings are going to have to learn how to adapt. That sounds interesting as hell.
Hell yeah.
The very first 5 minutes of the next movie that you waited for all these years to see that shows news clippings and news segments talking about how they've rounded all the dinosaurs up and moved them to another sanctuary.
Yep.
Completely reversing everything they set up. It's like, I want to see the interest. I want to see somebody go to the grocery store and have to fend off a triceratops in the parking lot. Things like that.
I'd love to just have an aerial shot of like the Willis Tower, let's say. Like
surrounded by
you're panning around
pterodactyls
and then, like
and shit?
Pterodon.
Yeah.
Pterodon flies by. It's like picks somebody up and drops them on the spike.
That's what I wanted, and that's what everybody wanted. So
a
it's
whole
just
pod of sauropods walking down Michigan Ave.
exactly, but it's such a bait and switch. All of that stuff was just in marketing material, marketing clips and segments up to the movie's release, and then to have it squashed 5 minutes into the movie is just such a letdown. And then it became this weird espionage
people really
movie.
didn't like the idea of the human dinosaur hybrid thing that they were going to try to push.
Yeah.
And I wonder if they just dumped all of that.
See, the first one, Jurassic World, was a great movie because it was basically a nerd's wet dream, a fantasy, if you will, of seeing Jurassic Park fully operational, which we never got to see. That's why World worked and it was great. It kind of went off the rails at the end, but it's still a good movie. But then everything after that just had no focus, fell apart, and turned into what nobody wanted to see. Anyways, that was a good road fork in the road.
But also, one last thing is, you say it's a bait and switch. The movies love that bait and switch. They put Ian Malcolm in the trailer for Jurassic World 2.
And he's in there for like, 2 minutes
seconds,
giving a
not
speech?
even.
Exactly. But then you have all the original characters come back in the last movie and they're wasted completely. They have no reason to be there, absolutely no purpose whatsoever, other than to shoehorn them in.
Ghostbusters.
Yeah, that too. God, let's
Even
not go
brought
down
back
that
Spangler.
route again. Yeah.
Oh, bitter. Bitter,
No,
bitter,
that
bitter,
was
bitter, bitter.
that was worth it because they needed to be able to actually transition and move past that. They addressed it well. But then after that point, they didn't need to shoehorn the damn original cast plus the new cast plus new characters on top of that all into the last movie and make it so that everybody had a minute or so of screen time because they were fighting to keep it going.
And then waste a perfectly awesome bad guy.
Wasted him entirely.
Oh, man. But anyways, Superman.
What movie were we talking about?
We're talking
Superman,
about,
the movie.
we're talking
right.
Lex
Superman,
Luthor.
yeah.
And he's got that suit that's reminiscent of his suit in the comics, which I thought he looked great. And I thought he had good line delivery. And looking into the history, I was like, okay, I could see him, the studios pivoting into replacing him with, what? I just can't think today.
Jesse Eisenberg?
No, not Eisenberg. He came later. So the history is there's 3 Superman movies, and then Reeve had his accident, and then they did one more Superman movie, Superman Returns. No, 4. I'm sorry. They had 4 Superman movies.
Yeah, there was
a 4th
1, 2,
movie
and
with
3,
Reeve, which
and
I
then
didn't know about.
4, the Fight for Peace or something like that.
The Quest for Peace,
The
which I
Quest
had
for
no
Peace.
idea was even a movie. So there's 4. The 5th is Superman Returns, which they did as a capstone to cap off that Richard Donner universe Superman. That was the last Superman movie in that vein. So who did they have replace him? I seriously, I can always talk about actors and I can always come up with stuff off the top of my head. I'm just having such an issue today. He's been canceled.
That's
Kevin
Superman-
Spacey. Kevin Spacey.
oh
Kevin
Spacey's
Spacey replaced Gene
Superman?
Yeah.
Hackman. You could absolutely see that as a transition. It's good.
yeah.
It's good. And then they hired a relative no name to play Superman because they wanted to and they wanted that to work. He looks just like Christopher Reeve. Worked great. I don't know if I'll ever watch the rest of these movies because I hear that it just keeps going worse and worse downhill after each one after this. So I don't know.
Joe, are we watching the rest of these movies?
Oh no, I didn't even think to ask.
All the Reeve films.
Okay. All right. So then
Okay.
here we go. We're buckled in. We're going to get to that prior movie. Great.
Yeah.
Buckle in, folks. This is going to be a wild ride.
Okay. Well, I'm excited to see 2 because it's still a decent movie from what I hear. But
I think 2 is the one I've seen the most.
I think I've seen a scene or 2 from 3. The only thing I've ever remembered from this movie specifically is the ending, which we kind of touched on, which is Superman gets so mad he flies back in time.
Yeah.
So he got super efficient on how he helped people, so you could just stand outside Lois's car and, like, did he change how he addressed the entire situation? What happened?
No idea.
So
He just was able to stand in front of her car before it got crashed on, but it should have, like, the ground should have at least opened up, and he just let her sit in the car.
So what I understand is he went back in time prior to this stuff happening and fixed both the missile issues prior to saving or going to her car to meet her. So all the damage that happened the first time around, none of it happened the second time. Because he had the ability to go back in time, defeat both missiles, stop any damage from occurring, and then go and just casually walk up to her car and be like, hey, what's up? It's the number one thing that gets called out about this movie is the fact that everybody actually thoroughly enjoyed the movie up until the ending, and the ending is what makes it controversial. Because it's just such a what the fuck moment. Because it cheapens a major character death and doesn't make sense.
And like growth for Superman. There's a whole comic
Exactly.
line where Lois's death is what turns Superman into what's his like negative version?
Oh, he breaks his oath as a paladin.
Yeah,
Bizarro Superman?
Bizarro's his own thing, not Bizarro. God, I forget what it's called. I'd have to go look.
Well, until you figure it out, I want it to be known as Dark Kent. I'm coining that term. He's Dark Kent from now on.
I love that.
It's the problem with time travel. It's time travel always, unless the whole film is about that, it basically either cheapens it
Yes.
or ruins it.
That is the best way to
And
describe
this
it.
is one of the
time
cases
travel
where
episodes
it
of Star
doesn't
Trek.
cheapen it. It takes everything out and just chucks it out the window and says, yeah, well, screw it.
You are very, 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 very true.
What IP?
That
did
is
a,
what sucks about it.
a thing about like if you went back in time, you can't change. You can't make changes in your past because your past becomes your present and then future. So if you go back and make changes, the changes that you make won't affect where you came from. I forget what there was a
Yeah, because you're talking about forking, and you're talking about some people put that into that theoretical physics, and okay, multiverse, blah 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 blah. It doesn't. You can't try and make sense of it because it doesn't matter.
Yeah.
Even if you did go to a different timeline and now you're in that timeline, what does it matter? You can't get
Right.
back. It's your timeline
Yes.
now.
That's going way too hard into the metaphysical for this movie that's already 2.5 hours
Right.
long.
Yeah.
I fully agree with that take, though. It's like Back to the Future. You're buckled in from the very beginning. The movie's about time travel. It sets it up. It sets it up wonderfully. You know the rules right away.
Mm-hmm.
You know what you're getting into. When you have a movie that's grounded in reality for the most part, and literally within the last 5 minutes of the film, it's like,
whoop.
let's get a reaction out of the audience and then immediately rip that back via some goofy MacGuffin that we just toss in. It does not work.
Not good. They didn't just toss it in. Like I
It's
said,
canonical.
way back at the start of the podcast, I set up because I knew this was going to happen. I was setting myself up for a later thing, just like the Superman movie. That thing that happened earlier in the movie where he goes to and spends a year in space, but he comes back and it's 12 years. Time is weird. And because of that weird time, they can use that and say, weird time exists, we can go back in time.
And I've seen fans
But
dissect
that's not
this.
how it was presented.
No,
so.
it just comes out of nowhere. And
It doesn't
So,
come out of nowhere.
I've seen fans
His
dissect it.
dad specifically calls out, don't
interfere
fuck
with timeline."
history.
yes.
It's like 3 or 4 times he calls it out,
Yep.
doesn't call out, specifically tells Superman, don't fuck with human history.
But Superman's allowed to change the rules at will because he's Superman. He can do whatever he wants.
He can survive being in the mantle of the Earth.
Oh my god, I forgot about that scene. Oh boy. Oh boy.
So he should, shouldn't he? Because Jor-El didn't mess with his own people. And because he didn't mess with his own people, they all died to the sun. Superman has a responsibility to his now people, the human people, to protect them.
But also my wife made a very valid point on that subject alone. Didn't Jor-El technically fuck with Earth's timeline by sending Superman to it?
Sure
Oh,
did.
yeah.
He's
That too.
immediately impacting things that should or shouldn't happen had he not been sent to Earth. So it's kind of hypocritical for him to say that when his own action changes the course of human history.
And I'll toss the wrench in there in that it plays right into what a Superman is, and that is an aspiration of the people of the United States held up. And if you look in the movie, his dad, United States dad, Jonathan basically says, you're here for a reason, and kind of starts developing it. And it starts playing out in that way that is also a very United States, very American mentality of, you're the main character. It's kind of a conflicting message.
The reason he's here is because he was sent here on a spaceship.
And then there's that whole fan canon about Superman saying that Jor-El sent Superman to dominate Earth.
I'm sure that happened in one of the comic books.
It happens in the comic books. I think they call it out in one of the more recent Superman films with Zod. And Zod knew that Jor-El was going to send his kid to Earth regardless of what happened to the planet.
Thank God, all we have to know is this movie.
Right? There's
so much backstory.
So much backstory.
I had a fun mental image when you were saying that, Joe, about you were put here for a reason. I want a screen of Jonathan arm over Clark Kent's shoulder, saying that line, and then him looking over to the truck missing the tire. And that's the scene. I want that.
Now, achieve your purpose, son.
Oh, God.
Finally.
Oh, no.
But yeah, interesting take on that. I mean, there's been comics that deal with what if Superman landed in Russia and became part of the Soviet Union. That's actually one of my favorite branch-off stories in comics is, Batman being Russian as well, too, wearing the cool flappy parka hat and things like that. He's trying to blow everybody up. He's almost like a terrorist. Yeah, and
I wrote down in my notes, man, it's really lucky that Clark got picked up by a decent person.
But then there's also the spin-off too that happened several years ago, however many years it was ago, where the thought happened of what if Superman was a bad guy, and then we got the movie Brightburn, where he's a serial killer.
Brightburn and
as Superman.
What was the one with Will Smith?
Oh, Hancock?
Hancock, yeah.
I finally watched that for the first time this last year, and I agree with what everybody says. The first half is interesting, the second half is meh.
Yep.
I'd never watched it because everybody said that, and I hate to say it, it's true. But anyways, yeah, there's a lot of interesting takes. There's a multitude of ways that the story could have played out. And I'm actually kind of happy that there's been so many takes in media for this, because it's cool that other people are thinking about that and actually making something out of it. But for this version specifically, it's bright, it's hopeful, it's cheery, it's great. I like it.
In that terms, though, does it hold up?
That's why I stopped myself. I don't know how I feel. There were some painful groans and comments watching it from the family while we watched it. And I don't know. You take this, I don't want to scrutinize it against other films because it is its own thing, but I can't help but to not look at Batman 89 compared to this. And it's an 11-year difference. I get that. but it holds up so much better because everything's darker. The special effects work within that darkness. It utilizes that. It really builds off that. The tone stays the same. It's really well done. Whereas this is my first time viewing any of these Christopher Reeve Superman films. And like we've discussed, the tone is all over the damn place. It makes me feel weird even thinking anything other than positivity towards this because I love Richard Donner. But I get that, he was struggling and fighting with the producers on this as well, too. So I don't really know where all the blame lies, but it feels wildly uneven. And I can't ignore the suspension of disbelief. I don't really feel suspension of disbelief in Batman, except for maybe like one or two scenes here and there. But in this, there were so many things where it's like, that wouldn't happen. Or, wow, that's a really, really wildly flamboyant character choice to have them do something like that just to further this point that's happening over and over and over again. So, I don't know. It's tough. I feel like maybe the boat has sailed on recommendations for this. And that's hard for me to say because I don't normally say that. I usually see the positive in everything, but it's, I don't know. It's shown its years.
I think the first hour and 45 minutes of this film stands up on its own, but the minute that they get into the like 60s goofy serialized TV superhero tropiness, that's when the movie falls off.
You mean you don't like it when he gets hit by a crowbar and turns around and says, good vibrations?
I mean, that's the joke writing in, like I said, in this film is fantastic. When Superman catches Lois and Lois he's like, I got you, and she looks at him and looks at the ground and she says, but who's got you?
Perfect.
Yeah.
There are so many good one-liners in this film ish that I called it out like it's in my notes. I will say, like I said before earlier in this episode, I would love to have a redoing of the origin story of Superman. The chunk of this film leading up to Superman being in high school. Everything up to that, I would love a redoing, a modernization of it. Because it's so good. You get so much information about Superman and a bunch of his background.
Yeah. I don't know. This one's really hard for me. I don't know why I'm having such difficulty with this one movie.
Having not seen any other Superman movies apart from Superman 3, I'd recommend it, actually. It's a really good introduction to Superman. It's older. I would recommend it with a caveat. Hey, this is a 50-year-old movie. Maybe, just keep that in the mind when you see some of the interesting special effects and when things get a little bit weird in tone, but in general, it's a really solid movie, really well put together. It feels like a lot of faff, but if you sit down and think about it and pay attention, it's well constructed and everything's there for a purpose. So
yeah,
it does what it set out to do, which is to make a fun Superman movie, and doesn't have to take itself too seriously. And all of these inconsistencies can be written away because the very start of the movie is a child reading from a comic book, and this could all just be the child's imagination.
That's true.
That is a damn
Very
good
good
point,
point.
actually. Yes, okay. I don't know. I think one addition to my comments is the thing that's making it difficult for me is just the performance from Christopher Reeve. He is... I get it. I see why so many people loved him as Superman.
Yeah,
him as Superman.
Reeve and Hackman, worth it.
Hackman's
right
great,
there.
exactly. So that makes it hard.
Yeah, my whole recommendation on this movie just sits on the shoulder of Christopher Reeve. I literally grew up with him as Superman my whole childhood. He will always be Superman. I mean, if you watch the documentary about him and his experience going through...
I watched that right after this.
His accident, it's not a rare thing that someone would say that if they grew up during that time slice.
For me, it was Reeves.
He was great.
Reeves and Kane. as Superman.
It's like people saying Pierce Brosnan is
They're
their
007, yep.
Pierce Brosnan or Michael Keaton's their Batman. It's all that time frame.
There's just certain people that you see as like, no, this is the perfect person for this role.
And he was, Christopher Reeve was a stage actor who was being discouraged from taking this role because he was being told Hollywood's going to take you away and just give you shit. You're never going to be a serious actor if you do this. Reeve proved him wrong by forcing himself in, well, one, by showing that he's a very good actor, and then he did a bunch of, I guess we'll call them now art house movies.
Yeah.
But he did great.
Honestly, like
outside of Superman.
Outside of seeing Superman and just knowing and growing up with Christopher Reeve, knowing that it was past my time because I was kind of born right in that spot where like it was several years before he had his accident. But I remember him most from, what was it, Village of the Damned, I think it was. Whatever movie that was, that horror movie where he's imagining a brick wall, trying to not think about the bomb that they placed that's going to kill all the kids that can read people's minds. That was my first introduction, really, to Christopher Reeve, and that should speak volumes if that was the first thing I saw versus Superman. Some fucked up horror movie. But I loved him in that. And yeah, it's cool to go back now and see him in this because I get it. I absolutely get it. I understand why this was such a big deal for people.
Yeah. I mean, if I erase him from my judgment on this film, yeah, it's we made a Superman movie. But when we put him in there, it's something more. So, like you said, Andy, it's tough. I mean, otherwise, without him, I'm not so sure how great this film would be.
No, you take Christopher Reeve out and you're just left with goofiness and just I can't imagine anybody else having the charisma and the charm that he has in this role.
If someone likes Superman, hell yes, I'd be like, you need to see the Christopher Reeve movies, whether or not they're the good ones or the bad ones. I don't care. Christopher Reeves is Superman.
Yeah. Then you can understand the Flash when they have that CGI version of him in the multiple universes colliding together at the end.
And in the end, that's us spinning the Earth backwards so fast that you didn't lose any time listening to this podcast. We've just spun you back in time.
Nailed it.
What? Talking about Superman, the movie from 1978. If you like what we're doing, subscribe. If you don't like what we're doing, why are you still here? You probably would have clicked away. So, bye.
You've done 170 some episodes. Why are you not subscribed? You listen to
if
us
you listen to
and
every episode
previous
and you
hosts
don't
talk
like
about
this,
films, what are you doing? Like, what are you
What are
doing?
you
Why are
doing?
you even
Guys, be nice to the poor unsubscribed people. They'll be fine.
I'll be nice to them when they subscribe. Till then,
I'll be nice to you
mean.
guys before you subscribe. It's
here?
fine.
I'm not,
Thanks for
I'm not being-
staying
I'm
with
not
us.
being
It's been
mean.
great.
I want to know like what keeps bringing you back.
This might be their first time. Like Superman, there's a lot of
There's
super
a lot of super
fellas
fans
that
out there.
Love Supermans.
That's fair.
And
Fair.
it's just, you know, there's a lot of super fans. There we go. We're super happy you're here.
You can come back next time, and we'll welcome in a glass plate full of people to smash and release on the world, because I think that's in Superman 2.
I couldn't tell you.
Either way, Superman 2, no subtitle.
Yeah. Come back next time when we rewind again.
Oh yeah, baby. Now I gotta go do some old people shit.